Earlier this week, I went on Google search typing why product managers love to. And what do you think was Google's most searched term in the autocomplete? You suggested right, why product managers love to answer. And what can I say? It is true, we love to answer. We product managers love having the answers to the company most interesting questions, how to grow, how to delight our customers, and even how to beat up the competition. But as you know, what defines your answer as the answer and not as someone's opinion is how you make valid decision processes. In other words, if you love to have all the answers, you need to know how to work with KPIs and performance management. You guessed it right. Today's Ask Me Anything is all about the practical, data-oriented processes every product manager should master. Hello, leaguers, and welcome to today's Ask Me Anything session, the place where talented and curious product managers like you get to ask us anything. Product management KPIs cover a broad set of topics. We product managers must make the judgment call, identifying what is the most useful one to assist us on this decision making. You should work with the executive team to identify product management metrics and to build a process of decision making that works for you and for the company goals. And when pitching new ideas and asking for investment, well, having the data that you need about trends and methods will make your investment strategy to have an impact. I can't express this enough, guys. KPIs and everything that has to do with performance management can make or break your product. And this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. By the way, nice to meet you. My name is Moriya Kassis. I'm the founder and general manager of Product League. And what we do is helping you to become the best product manager you can be. We are a mentoring program for product managers by product managers, and we meet here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to have these wonderful Ask Me Anything shows where you get to ask us all the questions, and we provide you with all the answers. And now we've got 3 talented, dedicated, and experienced Product League mentors to answer all your questions about KPIs and performance management, OKRs, North Stars, you name it. We are on it. Let's bring them in. And we're starting from New York, joining us live. Let's welcome Noam Mantel to the floor, Global Director of Product Management at InBev and Product League mentor. Noam is a generous at heart. In her 12 years of product management experience, Noam has worked on products across 6 different industries, ranging from digital healthcare to beer. In the past few roles, she has shifted from being a PM to leading product teams. And so her focus has been on coaching, mentoring, and empowering product managers to make the best decision possible. It's also interesting to share that Noam has been with us with the league since the first batch. Super, super, super exciting. And if you would like to, you can even spot a picture of her with her first mentee on our website. So happy to have you here with us today, Noam. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm so pumped. And again, like you said, been part of Product League forever. And I can honestly say it's like the thing that I look forward to every single week. So I'm pumped to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to learning from you. And we are moving to London. Joining us live from London, please shout a Guten Tag to Ruth Guthoff-Recknagel, Head of Product at Dr. Care Anywhere and Product League mentor. Ruth is a retention-driven product leader with a CV you will expect for someone who has spent 20 years joining dots in innovative digital businesses. A European master degree, time spent working in the US, and love to Kaffeekuchen. Now wait for we have a surprise for you here. This is the famous cake that we are going to learn what it has to do with product management and how it can drive people to have more energy. Yes.
You are I love it. Käsekuchen. There's nothing better than Käsekuchen.
Yes. Well, so you are here to let us know how it shaped your view of running high-performing teams and taking digital products to market. So happy to have you here with us. How are you today?
I'm excited, and I think this is the first time ever somebody presented a Käsekuchen digitally to me, which is almost mean, I must say. I want a real one now. I better bake one.
We're here to make you happy. What can I say? It's all about the users. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are moving to you, Zac. Dallas, Texas. Here we come. Last but not least, get ready to learn from Zac Fleming from Dallas, Texas, VP Product at Citibank and Product League Mentor. Over the last 13 years, Zachary has been a challenger driving digital transformation from within the healthcare, insurance, and banking industries, pushing organizations to reimagine infrastructure, operating models, and technology to create innovative products and services that make all of our lives better. I think this is the best inspiration out there, to make products that someone's, feel that it makes their lives better.
Exactly. Thank you for having me on today, too. I'm very excited to talk with this group. I think this topic is one that is very near and dear to my heart, and one that I've seen many struggle with. So very thankful to be here and excited for the rest of the time.
Very excited to have this experience learning from you. Thank you very much, Zac. And I'm bringing Noam and Ruth to the stage with us. So how is it going to work? When you register to this event, we give you the opportunity to ask us anything you want about setting, tracking, and even dashboarding, KPIs, and performance management. We chose the questions that were most frequent, but also the questions that were exciting, interesting, and what we believe can make you into a better product manager. And we don't stop there. At the end of the session, we'll also have an open Q&A where these 3 experienced product league mentors will answer the questions you'll submit in the chat. Leaguers, you got 2 call to actions. 1, show us some product love, and please subscribe to our channel, like our video, like our page, wherever it is that you watch us. Just show us some product love. And the most important one, submit your question in the chat. Let us know what is it on your mind and heart when it comes to setting KPIs and tracking performance management and everything that you want to know in order to do your work better. And who knows, maybe you'll receive the answer you are looking for. Zac, Ruth, and Noam, what do you say? Are we ready to dig in?
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
Loving it. Okay. Perfect. So we are starting with the first question. It goes to you, Noam. It comes from Bernard, and he is asking, let's say we're starting from scratch, no KPIs whatsoever. What is the very first thing we should do?
So the first thing that you should do is go top down, right? I think it's really complex to go bottom up. There are so many things to look at. So let's put product aside. I know that this is product, right? But let's put product aside just for a second and look at the company as a whole. And what I like to do is take an example for the simplest type of really product that exists, a chair, right? Imagine I manufacture chairs for a living and I want world domination in this, right? I need to assess, where am I as opposed to world domination? Am I just starting out? Am I near it? And there are different ways to do it. But let's say I'm somewhere in the middle and I want to grow. I need to ask myself, what is the best way for me to grow? Is it locally in the markets that I'm currently at? Is it different markets? Do I grow through B2B? Do I grow through B2C, direct to consumer? All these different questions just about chairs, right? The simplest that you could possibly go, really. So say I want to go B2B, right? So we're making our way down kind of the hierarchy, top down. And I want to go B2B, and I say, I think the best way for me to do this is through designers. Interior designers are the way to go. I want to go through them. They will distribute really my chairs everywhere. Perfect. So now let's see how I can measure success of my product within this scope of B2B, right? So what does that look like? Well, with designers, maybe they're working on multiple projects, so I can measure retention. I can measure how many times they come back. That can be a really good proxy for what I'm looking to do and how my company defined what success is, right? So this is where start high level at the company level and then find out where you fit, because it should really intersect with the rest of it. Because marketing needs to do a good job of reaching out to these designers, right? So you need to have these shared targets in order to reach the company goal. It all needs to fit together really nicely.
I love it. Spot on. But I have something to ask you. The bandwidth was lost for 2 seconds. We heard everything. Just please make sure that nothing is taking the connection. But aside of that, we started with the best intentions and the best tip that every product manager can get. And we are moving to you, Ruth, with a question from Kubilai. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. And they are asking, what are some metrics that seems to be overvalued by product managers? We are getting to the juicy questions.
That is one of the favorite ones that are discussed right now. But before we even get to that one, I want to point something out that I realized when looking at KPIs, the naming conventions. What do you call something? And the definitions. So, for example, in the language of product, you would call it activation. In the name of growth marketing, you might call it something different. So I think also looking at what Noam earlier said, it's about being very clear across the entire company what a certain thing means. Now back to Net Promoter Score. So this is where I ask you, would you recommend our product to a colleague? And the reason why this one is not my favorite, and I think it's overvalued, is because it gives you just 1 point in the entire experience. It doesn't give you the overview along the line, and it summarizes too strongly. So something we're currently looking into is the HEART framework from Google, as you would expect, where it's about happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, task success, to not only look at one time where you ask the question, or maybe two, but seeing how we can how happiness is spread along the entire journey.
Perfect and spot on. And guys, we are now with a question from Vesela that goes to all of you, and it's somewhat of the same question, but just in another way. If you can name one kind of KPI that every product manager needs to track, now we're talking about the great KPIs. What will that be? And you know what, Ruth? We're staying with you. So you just shared the a little overvalued one. What is the one that we should all focus on?
I think you might have heard me because I'm speaking a lot. So I talk about growth is great, but retention is forever. While at the beginning, you will always start with activation. You will look at how many people you get to this aha moment to grow. But I think then you need to get into a more mature model where you find out retention. So how long do they stay with you? But then also how many engagement points can you set? And this is along how do they stay longer in the product, more frequent, different use cases. So it's that entire journey. But I would always start with activation first and then think about how do you make them come back. There we go.
Makes sense. And we've heard from Ruth, we've heard from Noam. Zac, what is the one thing that we should all start with?
Yeah, so what I always tell my teams is, so what? Or kind of said another way, what value are we really seeking to create? I think that the issue I've run into a lot of times is people go straight to the vanity metrics, like visits or downloads. But really, if you think about it, if you're a health product, you should be tracking, well, how much more active are my customers being that use our products versus others? If you're an investment product, what return have you created for your customers that have used your platform? So I think in this regard, finding that right metric, everybody needs to go through that exercise that I think Noam talked about at the beginning, because really that right metric is worth more than 1,000 opinions out there.
I love it. Thank you very much, Zac. And Noam, I see that you've been impressed with Zac's answer. What is your take on that?
I agree. So I come in from an interesting vantage point with this role because I manage mostly internal products right now. So yes, internally we have 200,000 employees, so that's a pretty good size. But also, it is internal, and for some of the things that we manage, people don't really have a choice whether they use it or not, right? So activation and retention, not really our problem. And so what I like to focus on is more like the job to be done framework, which I am a really big fan of, and identifying what is really the job that's interesting. So I agree that Net Promoter Score, not what I would focus on, but for me, part of the products that I measure is maybe like time to something, right? And that's a really good one. So I think like Zac said, identifying what it is that we're trying to measure, what job it is that that our users are hiring our product to do, and kind of finding a proxy for that kind of value.
Thank you very much. I love it. And our team will share a few links provided by you guys, Zac, Noam, and Ruth, in just a few seconds. And in the meantime, Zac, we're going back to you. We're starting to talk about the product manager role. And Videhi, I, again, hope I pronounced the name correctly, is asking, I would appreciate tips on recognizing the best KPIs. Any questions or observations that would be helpful?
Yeah. So I think this was kind of inherent in the question, but I do want to call it out because I think a lot of people come into KPIs and Google probably this exact thing. What is the best KPI? And I think in my experience, the reality is there isn't one. It really is built around your product, your executive team, and your customer base. So what I do is instead of come to the table with, this is going to be our KPIs, whether you like it or not, it's really challenging it. And I do kind of 3 tests. The first is I try to unpack correlation versus causation, because I think the real risk is a lot of the metrics that are out there today aren't truly driving the behavior change. Yes, they go along with the behavior, but really, if you want to get to the best KPI, you need to find the one that's causing that change, not just what's happening because of it. The second thing is, and this is just more on when in those one-on-one meetings you have with your team, is you have to say, like, are you willing to put this on your performance review? Are you willing to have a presentation with our board on this one metric? Because it's amazing how quickly that sense of ownership really knocks off the 95% of those metrics that really aren't the best metric. So I think really making sure that the product owners are empowered to truly own the metric is something that's incredibly powerful that will help you, again, get to that best metric. And then finally, test it. Have a stand-up. In that stand-up, have your KPI, test on that KPI, plan, do, check, act. And so you'll find out over a couple weeks if that KPI is the best KPI, because you will start to track, is it creating the desired change that we want on the back end. So I encourage people, don't be married to it. You do need to measure it for a period of time. Don't hop to a flavor of the month KPI, because then you will never move forward. You'll be running in circles all day.
I love it for 2 reasons. One, I already learned something from you. I like the emphasis on making the team to own the chosen metrics, right? It's such a big tip and spot on. Love it. Already learned something new. And, just the emphasizing on this point. And I love that the fact that you mentioned that we shouldn't marry to what we chose, because it leads us to the next question from Victoria. She's asking, how often do you revise a set of KPIs? And Ruth, we want to know, what is your answer?
I'm going to take a little bit of a different stand on this. So in the last 3 companies, we've worked with a North Star metric. And the reason why we've done this is that the different business units can unite and everybody can kind of pitch into that North Star metric. 2 companies now in healthcare, and as you would expect, it's all about consultations per day, because this is important to us. And then if you look at that North Star metric, what we're building is OKRs, and OKRs are objectives, key results. And because I find the initiative the most important ones, I'm calling them OKRs. So at Dr. K Anywhere, we're calling them OKRs. The objectives are usually set quarterly. Some of them are strategic, so they're longer. The KRs are also set quarterly, but can be adjusted, because the first time you're doing this, you might change them afterwards. But what is even the most important one is that you try different initiatives to actually get to that measurement, because one might work, one might not work, and you will find out over only trying different ways if you go in the right direction. So for me, the combination of that North Star with objectives that are driven from the business strategy, key results, and then the initiatives, that's kind of the tree we are creating, and then measuring quarterly.
I have a question about that, actually, if it's okay.
Yes.
I'm allowed to ask questions.
Absolutely.
So cool. by initiatives, are those experiments as well? So do you have, are these, so you're testing to see whether an initiative could be a key result?
Yeah, we're testing if it contributes to the key result.
Got it.
So some things work, some things work not. Sometimes it's features. It really depends on the maturity of the things we're building. So we have an area of the product that is already existing for a while. So there it's about optimizing. And then we have areas of the product we build new pathways where we're actually trying new features and then see if they go in the right direction. Also, I think we found that in all three companies that sometimes the KR is either not high enough, not low enough. So I think it's also about learning this, but learning it not by just trying one thing, but seeing what are the different pieces. And I think the other piece is also once you have this clarity along the entire company, others can pitch in. So marketing pitches in, the doctors are pitching in. So everybody's trying to kind of get into that direction. And that's where a lot of fun and energy comes from.
Very cool.
I know I'm going to sound cheesy, but I think there is nothing better than for product creators that just love to have geeky chats about product management. Just love it's going right now. Yeah. So thank you very much for that. And Noam, Lara is already saying thank you to you about talking about managing internal products. It is a subject that we should talk more about. And Raidian is asking if we are going to talk about how to track success for products in early stages. So don't worry, stay tuned. It's coming in just a few minutes. We're going to dive right into it very, very soon. So thank you very much. And Noam, Adi has a question to you. And she is asking how to manage performance and KPIs for a product that it is installed on premises and does not have a call home.
Let's talk about the chairs again. I think this is perfect, right? So being IoT products are relatively a new thing, but products that have been sold over time, have been tracked for so long. I come from the beer industry. Beer sales have been tracked for so long, right? So this notion of tracking success of a product that doesn't have a call home capability, not a new thing. We can learn so much from these kind of older industries of how to measure. So it kind of goes back to the same conversation that we started out with of, what KPIs would be a good proxy for your company's overall success, and kind of start from there. And I can guarantee you can even get overwhelmed by the number of KPIs you can find there as well. So firm believer that you don't necessarily need IoT related or any sort of digital KPIs.
Love it. Zac, anything to add?
Yeah, one thing I'd say, because I've run up against this, and I think some of this actually to enable you as a product manager to really get some of the answers we're talking about on those things that are installed on-prem starts in the sales cycle. Because I think it's important at that stage to set the precedence when you go to sell your product. If you are truly going and selling to kind of a customer in this regard, is letting them know, like, hey, by the way, quarterly, annually, we're going to have some time where we want to sit down with you and go through this analytics report that we have kind of built for you, and really make sure they understand it's for the benefit of the customer, and then having that relationship throughout the year so that when you get there, you get those answers. Because it is, I've been there. It is very hard when people have these really cool dashboards with real-time, average times, all this stuff, and you're just sitting there and you have to wait once a year to get that report out because those servers are on their premise. So I've been there, but the way we kind of got around it is you have to focus on customer relationship management. You have to build some of that into your product stack when they do install it. And then you have to have those touch points with them to make sure you can then get that data from them so that you can improve your product.
Ladies and gentlemen, we bring you the unspoken truth behind the scenes of product management. Thank you very much for adding this, Zac. And we're staying with you because Alina has a question to you. And she is asking, can you talk about product KPIs in the B2B space? Revenue is often the most visible one, but what else can we measure? We often have only a handful of large clients for each product, and signing on a new client can take many months. So many traditional metrics are lagging quite a bit. How to decide on metrics for success when sales cycles are 6 months plus?
Yeah, so fair question. So I've been on both B2C, B2B2C, and B2B side. And so one of the things kind of as I've gone through those experiences, I'd say obviously a lot of this depends on the service that you are providing with your product. But B2B is really benefits a lot more from a balanced measurement approach across the customer life cycle. So really let's just break it down into three questions. So obviously you are still beholden to growth. So you have to have some metrics about how do we grow the funnel. And so for B2B, my experience, it's a little bit different because you have a lot more drive from executive team to create features and create market parity, because really the sales team need those things to kind of make sure that they can then sell your product. The lead metric there can be something as simple as your team's velocity. But again, the lag metric for that is exactly, I think, what Elena laid out here is it's got to be revenue and it's got to be number of new prospects driven from your product. The second thing is you obviously want to know, so how do I grow the funnel is the first thing. The second thing is, are people engaging with my product? So again, this one is sometimes pretty hard to get with those B2B products. You don't always have access to that data, and some of it will depend on the stickiness. So I think Noam hit on this earlier, some of those internal products that are sold, like sometimes it doesn't matter if people like it. They're going to use Microsoft Word, Microsoft Outlook. Like Microsoft probably doesn't care about that stuff, but we're not all Microsoft. So for those of us that aren't, I think it's still important for us to think about things like average time on product, average logins. Some companies like Salesforce even kind of push this KPI further by introducing a super user or a gamifying training. So I think those are some cool creative ways you see in the marketplace once you get to that scale that you can kind of help drive that engagement with your product. And then finally, this is the thing that for me was the most unique moving from B2B to B2C was, does my product work? We all have bugs. If there's anybody on this call right now that does have zero bugs in their product, I want to meet you. Please reach out. But for the rest of us, I think that is very important for B2B because a lot of those contracts are written in a way where uptime and defect management is integral. In fact, most people, that's usually an out on most clauses to say like, hey, if you don't give me a 99 point, well, for the healthcare space, 99.9999% uptime, we're gone. And if you don't resolve X percentage of my tier 1 defects, we're gone. So I think for B2B, the one thing I will say is we have to make sure that we keep an eye and keep measurements around those high severity incidents and uptime where, yes, everybody should be looking at those things, but I would say the burden uniquely lies on those product managers in the B2B space to be measuring that and be held accountable to it.
Thank you very much, Zac. And from B2B, we're moving to B2C, where the question that goes to you, Noam, it comes from Sandeep. And he's asking KPIs for B2B2C products and API-led product, API-led backend products. So the cases that we usually don't talk about, how we track them better.
Yeah, so I've seen a couple of different instances of this in my career. And in one instance, I had full visibility of how the end consumer was actually using the product. So that made it a lot easier, right? I treated it almost the same as I would a B2C product in the sense that, they want their consumers to be happy. We obviously had this value that we were providing. It wasn't the kind of, daily active users, that kind of thing. It was really like monetary value that we were providing. So we could really prove it to the B side of the B2B2C, right? Another time I had zero visibility into it, but that's when you have to have this, or at least I found that you need to have a really good relationship with the business that you're selling to and kind of have that open conversation of, hey, our success is your success and vice versa. So let's try and see what kind of measurements that you can bring back to me and where we can improve and have this dialogue that's open. And that's how that partnership for me has always worked. And I think each case, each company is just so different in terms of what it's selling and what the relationship between that kind of middle B is, right? Is it a small business? Is it a kind of an enterprise product? And so the relationship is tighter there. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you very much. Yes, Ruth, of course.
I think I want to give another example because we are actually B2B2C. Because we work with a big insurance company. They have channel partners, and then we are actually treating their patients. So what we're looking at is how do we keep the patient engaged, but also how do we do the cost saving then to the B. And so we basically have two sets of KPIs to make sure that both of them work. So yeah.
Tell us more.
Sorry?
Tell us more.
No.
So how do you
It's really, especially when you try to launch a new product, what you're doing then is you're doing prototyping, as in the prototyping to figure out, does it have value for the patient, but you also do prototyping to see how you can sell it. Is it going to be anything that the company is interested in? So it's that balance that we need to work on. And then in health tech, you don't really think about this, but it's an interesting problem to have.
And I've noticed, just to add, there are times where there's even a little bit of a conflict between what the business wants and what the consumer wants. I've just as an example, a previous company, we were our consumer was actually like a small mom and pop store, and we were trying to provide more value by getting the revenue up, but the B in the middle was kind of more of an enterprise level, and they wanted that revenue up in a certain way, right? So it's kind of like the recommendation engines get a little iffy, and so that can get tricky, and ultimately you kind of need to remember who your customer is, which is more often than not the person who pays you, which is that business, right?
In health tech, you still need to make sure that people get better. So, yeah.
That's the spirit, guys. That's the spirit. Nicola has a question to you, Zac. I hope you're ready, because we're going to talk about processes a little bit. And he's asking, which is the best way to bring KPIs to the center of decision-making?
Wow, I really like this question, because honestly, most people don't really think through this. They'll start building all this stuff out without actually thinking beforehand, what are we going to do with this? So great question. What I'll say is, I think to operationalize KPIs is a huge undertaking. So I hope what I'll say first is, Nicola, like, roll up your sleeves, because you need somebody to champion this, and this isn't usually a short-term thing. I mean, we're looking at best case scenario, really, to get this in a new space. You're looking around probably 6 months where somebody needs to be driving this in. But for this how do you actually make that work? I'd say never underestimate repetition. I mean, you are the champion of these KPIs for most of the people I talk with. They're bringing this to their company, or they're bringing this to their C-suite. So you need to make sure that this KPI is integrated into your language, into your one-on-one sessions. You need to be a champion for it. You need to be tiering your scorecards down. So you need to start at the top. Executives need to have their scorecard. Then below that, at each layer, you need to have a scorecard that then supports the one above it. So how do we connect our lead and lag metrics to make sure that everybody is truly working together at the end of the day? Because the CEO scorecard, it's going to be very difficult for a product analyst to really relate to that. So that's where tiering the scorecard down will, again, help make sure that it's really a part of every decision that is made across your company. And then finally, I'd just say, we can't do this today because we're all remote, but when you do get back in the office, don't be shy about posting those scorecards all around. Go print them off, put them up, make sure people see it. Because again, it's going to take a while to sink in, but that's just what I say. It's one of those things that you're going to have to be borderline annoying about it, but once it takes on and takes true form, the company will drive it on its own. Really, at scale, the company should be the one driving this, driven by that annual planning cycle from the top down, but it doesn't happen overnight. So best of luck to you. I've been there. It's difficult, but it is worth it.
Definitely worth it. And I agree with you. This was a brilliant question by Nicola. Thank you very much, Zac, for your answer. And now we're moving to the question that I think was submitted the highest number of times when we ask you leaguers to submit your questions. It comes from Karen, and she's asking, how do you decide on the numbers when setting OKRs? And it goes to you, Ruth.
Just because we've just done this a year ago, I still remember this. In the first OKR, and once again, we're using the OKRs way, we didn't have any numbers. So we came up with the objectives, and we said, this is what we want to measure, but we first needed to actually spend some time to come up with the baseline numbers. And also because now we're all remote, we do a lot of that on Miro boards. And a lot of it, what we're doing is we have, there's all kinds of templates, especially we're using a lot of the Lightning Decision Gems from AJ Smart. So what we're asking everybody is to put their objectives on the board, then we review the board, then we ask everybody to put their proposed KRs on the board. And because this is not only the product team, it's also the stakeholders, we do then do voting sessions on what do we think, as there's 12 people, for example, what are the most important ones. So it's the AJ Smart format of collect, choose, create, and commit. So collect the different KRs, choose then which one you want to go, because you don't want to have 500. And then you actually create the data around it, and then you commit. And the commit, as I said, we were usually tracking for a quarter, and then we see how well we've done this or not. And I think over time it gets easier. And also because what Zac was saying earlier, so the first time we presented this, from a product tech perspective, everybody was kind of a bit suspicious. But then we combined that with product demos, saying on a monthly basis, we demo the product and we also show what impact we have had. And then at the end of the 3 months, we showed the overall. And people started to buy into that much more. Can you implement that in 3 months? No. 6 months? You're getting better. And then you iterate and it gets easier, and people buy in and you start to change things. So deciding is temporary, and then you iterate, just like when you build a product. You never get it right in the first instance.
That's perfect. So let's name the steps one time again. We have collect, choose, create, commit, and iterate. Right? You actually added it.
Actually, we need to talk to AJ and Smart and tell them to add one more.
Exactly. You see, good things come out of our sessions here. Amazing. Thank you very much, Ruth. I think, Zac, you have something to add.
Yeah, just real quick, because I think it's there's one opportunity just for the group, I think, even on this call day. So I think for this, there's two approaches. There's definitely, we'll call it the left to right. How do we do better than what we do today? So pulling the data and figuring out, hey, based off our history, how do we improve it? And then the other approach is really more this kind of right to left, and it's reimagining and asking other companies how they are doing it. Because I find that there are things where you kind of need to be doing both approaches. You need to be thinking about how do we do better, but then you need to join things like Product League and network and talk with other people to understand what is best. Because rarely do you get there on your own. A lot of those times, those leaps that we've seen in our product have come from other industries, other networks, other market reports, and looking to say, well, how are they doing that in half the time? And it's like, oh, there's automation opportunities out there. Oh, they've used this unique partnership with this group. And so really, if you look at how do we transform, there's another way to do it. And it's just connect with your peers, go network. There's some very, very expensive market reports you could go buy, but my guess is not all of us have the budget to go do that, but you can get that for free if you really generally go out and try to invest in your network as well.
Can I add something to that? Because I think that at one point, yes, you look at the others, but I think it's also interesting to, so for example, in Germany, there is, and now it's also in English, there's an OKR group, and because everything is remote right now, so there's also that exchange of how did other people try to implement it. And I think that's a great opportunity right now. OKRs are everywhere and everybody's trying, and by sharing what you haven't done right, I think now I'm doing this the third time around, it's much, much easier than the first time around. So yeah, go and listen to what others have done right or wrong.
And just say something. So as somebody who's been both like deep in startups and also now in a larger organization, there is a lot more wiggle room with the startups, right? So you can go and you can reimagine, and you can say, okay, well, these are our goals, and let's rethink this, right? So like let's rethink these high level goals much more doable in kind of a startup scenario than in a larger organization. And especially as far as kind of multi-team collaboration on a specific kind of goal, right? So I can speak from the company that I work at right now. We set targets and goals once a year. We don't have quarterly, right? So we extrapolate from the year, but we commit to them, right? And it's tied to compensation as well, which is it comes from kind of the sales and manufacturing world. But that it's an interesting challenge to navigate, right? So it's also about what environment are you in and what level of impact can you have on how you set goals, what metrics you use, and what system, right? Because if it's so ingrained into the HR culture even and everything around the people culture at your company, it presents an interesting challenge.
Are you aware of the book Startup, Scale Up, Screw Up?
I'm not.
It's a really good book from Jürgen Appelo. And he talks exactly about this. What should you use in small, big? But he doesn't go to really big. But I think in the startup scale up area, that's where most of the companies then go down, actually screw up. So it's an interesting one on the topic.
Oh, we'll check it out.
I really like what's going on here, guys. We get the jewels. This is really, really great conversation. Thank you very much. And another Karen submitted a question as well. And she's asking, can you suggest optional KPIs for executives? So this time we're talking about KPIs from another angle. Noam, should we start with you?
Sure. And again, as with the rest of this conversation today, it depends, right? So the kind of KPIs I would set for myself when I was leading product for a 200-person company versus leading product for a section of a 200,000-person company, the team's going to be 40 people large, right? So that changes the way that we need to look at things, and it becomes a lot more process driven, at least from my end, and becomes a lot more about engagement, right? So, for instance, we go through this yearly process of engagement surveys where our employees kind of give us feedback about everything, and I could do that with smaller companies, but getting that feedback from 5 people, not exactly the same, right? And so quantitatively, there you have to adjust it to what you want to achieve, and the size of the team and what you want to improve. So I think from an executive perspective, it has to be about employee engagement and employee empowerment, but how you measure those things has to change from company to company.
Thank you very much. Zac? KPIs for executives.
Yeah, so I think Noam just hit on a really good one. And I think that's where my mind went directly with this question. One thing I do want to call out, because it is something that is unique for those that are kind of scaling into the large or the very large, is really to think about use KPIs as another way to drive rigor around your financial economics. So thinking about KPIs as cost per, and breaking down your services and your offerings across that sort of lens. Because I think if you're in a startup situation, this doesn't make sense. I would say even small and most medium business, this doesn't make sense. But one thing I do want to just call it out, because it is unique, and I've only seen it done at very few organizations, but what they were able to do with that sort of information was really have strategic conversations about partnerships, acquisitions, automation, and things like that. So not things that I think, those aren't discussions that are had really below that senior leadership level. But for those that are kind of looking to grow their careers that way or scaling their company to that next level, I'd highly encourage people to also use these KPIs and analytics as a way to really make sure you're driving around your financial economics of your product line as well, not just the experience.
Spot on. Thank you very much. Ruth?
I don't have much to add, but the one point that Zac just said, because we just grown and we just IPO'd, is exactly what you said, that we need to look at the employment satisfaction and these growth metrics. So give me another year and I might have a different opinion, but right now I'm really impressed what you had.
Open your calendar. We're setting another date online here with 3 of you. Ruth, the audience is asking for the name of the book that you mentioned.
Yes. Do you want me to write it down? Do you want me to?
That would be perfect. Whatever. You see this one? Yeah. You can also just say it.
It's Startup, Scale Up, Screw Up, and it's Jürgen Appelo. If you don't know Jürgen Appelo yet, he's an interesting character in general. Yeah, but I'm going to write it in the chat. Can I write in the chat? Yes, I can.
Yes, you can write it in the comments in the upper part. Thank you very much. And now we are moving to the interesting part of the Q&A. So I want to remind the audience that we want to know what are your questions when it comes to KPIs and performance management. So please let us know. And I want also to remind you to like this video and show us some product love by subscribing to our channel if you watch us on YouTube, or like our page if you love us and watch us on Facebook. So thank you very much for that. And we are starting with a few questions that were already submitted. And Mayur is asking you, Ruth, but actually all of you, just that Ruth, you mentioned it earlier, North Star metrics. One of the things I love the most about these sessions is that we take buzzwords and concepts that everyone talk about and really talk about the how-to. So to all of you, but we will start with you, Ruth. Can you give us an example of a North Star metric?
So having worked now in the second company for health tech, it was consultations per day. So how many patients did we have on the day? Having worked in a marketplace between homeowners and tradesmen, it was actually how many jobs did we help homeowners per day. And for us, per day was the right one. In other companies I've seen, it's monthly or it's weekly. It really depends on the frequency you want to tackle.
Love it. Noam, the stage is yours.
Perfect. So let me give a practical example. So I manage a team that is building a data platform within the company, right? And so for us, a really good North Star metric is the amount of data out of the 100% that exists in the company that is in the platform. The reason is it uses the following, or it is impacted by the following. How easy it is to ingest new data into the platform, right? It's a platform, right? So it's like think about Uber drivers and riders, right? So the more data, the more people want it. The more people want it, the more data is incentivized to come in. So it's definitely UX of the platform. It's the partnerships within the company, right? So if we want to increase finance data, right? So partnership. And it also implies that we understand finance's needs. So you really need to pick something that's so central that really gives you an indication if all things are kind of taking at the same time. I left some things out, but it's a really good indication of how successful we're going to be, because everybody needs to get banded together to improve this metric.
Spot on. Thank you very much. And there is high demand for us to talk again about internal products. And what would you like to share? Demi is asking for some advice as she's struggling with that. So Zac, Noam, and Ruth, what do you want to share with Demi when it comes to KPIs and performance management in internal products?
I can start if you'd like.
Yes.
Perfect. So
the virtual mic is yours.
As somebody who's going through this right now and just set up the KPIs for the next year, it certainly is challenging, right? So you have to think about, if I'm looking at what's going to make me successful, and to me, successful is obviously data in the platform. We just talked about it. Amount of people opting to use it as opposed to other things, and a proxy. so I spoke with some folks at Microsoft that run kind of internal products, and they said a good proxy for them is time to anything for these internal products, because really what you want is you want to get in, do your job, finish up, and move on with your life and do your core business, right? So I would look at it the same way that you would look at maybe an HR system that you're working with. You don't want to spend a ton of time there. You have something that you need from it, right? You have something that you need to get done, and you want to move on. So this is kind of how I chose to approach it, is really kind of taking away your stereotypical like daily or monthly active user kind of engagement things, but really what is the value that we're providing? Again, to the beginning of the conversation here, right? What is the value that we're providing to whom, and what is a good proxy to identify whether we're doing it or not?
I love how it all comes together and the different questions and answers. Yeah, it is. Zac, anything to add?
Yeah, I think one thing I would say, being in your shoes, was I think alignment is a big issue with internal. So where you will definitely need to have your product KPIs, HR may not care about your KPIs for your product that is supporting HR. So I think one of the things we try to do with our internal products that we built was meeting with the executives of those groups and understand what their scorecard was, and then find ways for us to kind of say, hey, I'm glad you're really looking to drive this metric. Did you know that through this, we're actually helping you do that? And really finding those connection points to your customer base within your company to help really align the benefits across both, because I've struggled with that over the years too, is getting them to really commit to both like what your roadmap and invest in it, and to do that internal setting. And the best way is you got to start at the top of that group and just make sure that it's very clear the value you're creating, how it is benefiting them at the end of the day.
So just to add that, we use different terminologies in like scorecards, but it's when we're building a product for an internal customer, we match targets, right? So we basically have people kind of in our internal product team with the stakeholder really align, I guess, KPIs in their scorecards. So at the end of the year, when you're evaluated, right, you two have the same evaluation, same word for word kind of goal that you're trying to hit. And then that makes it a lot easier throughout the year to, it incentivizes collaboration throughout the year. And that's kind of core. And that's why it's so different for the big companies, because we wouldn't be able to even get a KPI approved at the beginning of the year if it wasn't aligned with some other team.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. And Mayur is here to say thank you and is sharing a quote. If everything works, this is the metrics that you should move. Can't agree more. Yeah, love it. Thank you very much. And I want to go back just for a short discussion to the question that was submitted previously by Ridian. And he was asking for how to track success for products in early stage of build. And I know that there are many startup product managers in the crowd looking to learn more from you guys on how to track it in the early days when there is not enough of data, not enough of users, not enough of anything basically to track, but we still need to set a path to measure what we do and to track our success or fail. So what are your best advice on how to do it in the early days? That's a tough one. I agree. That's a tough one. Yes, Ruth. Go ahead.
I think I haven't done early days in a long time, I must say. It was always not so early anymore. But I think at the beginning, you start to track anything you can. I think and what I've also seen is a lot of companies don't track anything. So when you, the early startup products where they just build and see if customers are coming, to then dive deeper into optimizing, I think that's not the best advice, but as much data as you can, gather it. That would be mine. Sorry, I hope somebody else has a better one.
I laugh because I totally, I totally agree with you. Linking back to that, I was like, man, I would take anything. But the one advice I would say is also to don't overcompensate. So I've made the mistake of investing too much into KPIs early on before we were really ready to do it. So I think one of the questions that we talked to earlier about is like, so what? So make sure before you go and invest a lot of time and resources, it's very clear what you're going to do if those KPIs do actually change. Because I've seen people spend a lot of time too early in the cycle to really create this really robust dashboard. And so when I share my dashboards, I tell most people like, please don't use this, because I've worked in a very mega large corporation where we have whole departments devoted to supporting this function. You are just one product manager. So that's just my word of warning is find one thing, take whatever you can get, but also to make sure you're balancing the focus on the product itself and don't prioritize the KPIs over that, especially early on.
Wise words. Thank you very much. Yeah, it is. It is. Thank you very much. And I will add a tip of my own. I think the discussion needs to be shifted from talking about the growth and having many users as the only opportunity for us to track something, into really focus on the experience that even a limited number of users have. So it is okay that you don't have thousands of users. It is okay in one case. If those that you do have, and it can be sometimes even in the tens, depends on the domain that we're talking about, are truly satisfied with your product. So even, I will challenge what I'm saying even more, even if you have only a 10 of users, right? Just 12 users, 10 users, whatever it is, find the time to meet with them regularly, talk with them, really track the process, track what they love, what they don't like, what are the KPIs of what will make them stick with your product longer, right? What will make them leave your product, even there is a switching cost to it, right? So when you truly get to understand what this limited number of users like or don't like about your product, this is when you have the opportunity to grow the number of users. And then, the traditional path of tracking is more visible to you. But it all starts even in the very early days with focusing on what matters and making sure that the users that you do like love you. So this is about that. And good tip, Zachary, don't prioritize KPIs over the product in the early stage. You say it and they agree. Thank you very much. Now, guys, may I challenge you a little bit? Zach, Noam, and Ruth.
Yes.
Okay. Exactly. I'm waiting for this excitement in your body language. So we're all product professionals. And in product management, as you know, it's all about prioritizing. So we mentioned so many crucial tips today. But if you are to choose one thing only, that all product managers in the audience should think about tomorrow morning when they're set a new day of product management work, what is this one thing that you would like them to keep in mind when it comes to KPIs and performance management for product managers? Who is the brave one to answer first? Yes, Ruth.
So I tell my team and everybody, measure fun. Because how much data you look for, great. But if you're not having enough fun during the day, during the week, during the month, your job is going to be really, really sad. So we put an extra emphasis on, especially right now where we're all remote, to make sure we have plenty of fun.
I love it. I love it so much. Thank you very much. Noam?
I'm going to steal Zach's thing from earlier. So what, right? So as they're going into work, I love that, Zach. I think I'm going to use it from now on. As people are thinking about what to do, they have to ask themselves, so what? How does this help? How does this help the bigger picture? Love it.
Thank you very much. And Zach?
So I guess my quote to leave everybody with is measuring what's important and measuring what is easy is rarely the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Good quotes today, guys. We should make next batch, we should make t-shirts with today quotes and slogans. It's fantastic. Thank you very much. From Dallas, Texas, this was Zac Fleming, VP of Product at Citibank and Product League Mentor. From London, Ruth Guthoff-Recknagel, Head of Product at Dr. Care Anywhere and Product League Mentor. And from New York, Noam Mantel, Global Director of Product Management at Anheuser-Busch InBev, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, and Product League Mentor. I am Moriya Kassis. This is Product League. Thank you so much for watching us, and we can't wait to see you at our audience at tomorrow's event. Look for the link to it in the comments, and until then, please go and lick it up. I had so much fun. Guys, how was it for you?
It's awesome. Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Learn some new things, which is always important, right?
It's so important. So important. And these discussions are just, as I said earlier, about, taking the buzzwords and the words that we talk about and mention every day and talk about the practice, the process, the know-how, the why, the when, and to do it with awesome people like you. So thank you so much for the experience. Can't wait to have you again on this exact stage. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
You.
Thank you.